Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Grow Podcast. I'm Sam Hahn. I will be your new host here. And today we have Linda and Glenn from the feed department, and we're going to be chatting about some nutrition needs for cattle.
Yeah, Sam, this time of year is really critical as we move them into stocks, that we get a protein supplement out there for them. And typically we recommend tubs, or we have liquid protein also that we can put out there. That protein's going to help them utilize those stocks better and get more nutrients driven out of those stocks for those cows. So it'll help them keep them in better body condition score and so forth. So we recommend protein tubs and a mineral source out there. Minerals critical all year round. So that's something to help them keep in better condition and keep utilization of the stocks as best as we can.
What you said liquid source, how does that liquid source work? How are you supplementing that? Because tubs are pretty easy to throw the tubs out there, so how do you use the liquid?
Right, so the liquid would be in lick wheel feeders. So we have various sizes. We have a 2-hole lick wheel feeder that the cows lick a wheel, and actually the liquid molasses sticks to that, and that's how they get that. And we have a 4-hole for a larger group of cows. And we handle QLF liquid out of most of our branches, and also a Purina liquid out of some of our branches on the northern side of our territory that we can get delivered to their farms or the fields where the cows can get the supplemental protein from the liquid.
Okay. When you're putting cattle on stocks, do you need to be supplementing them right away, or is there enough feed out there, when they're first out there, or do you need to have, I guess I'm just asking, is the protein need to be out there right away, or can you let them run a little bit without it?
Typically what we see is the first week or two, the cows don't have much interest in the protein tubs because they're going out there grazing the corn, picking the corn out, finding the goodies first. And then as they get into the fields and they're starting to eat more husks and leaves and so forth, that's where the protein's more critical. So I'd say you'd probably have a week to 10 days, and then when you need to have the supplement out there.
Okay. Linda, we were talking before we came on about how you were getting some extra ears of corn off of a field that you're going to have some cattle grazing on. This year we had some wind events that really knocked over some corn, and even some late ones a couple weeks ago on a Sunday night that really knocked some corn over. So when you have a lot of ears on the ground, can that be harmful to cattle? I mean, sometimes they can get bloated and things can happen. What do you do in that situation if there's a lot of corn on the ground?
Okay. We have seen a lot of that in different territories. Like you said, we've had wind damage, we've had some hail damage in some other areas. Some concerns about that is cows, because the cows have it figured out that they actually go for the corn first, where sometimes if you have yearlings or bred heifers, they're not as aggressive. But cows, you can have long toes, and you can, even with too much corn, you can lose cows. You can bloat them and lose them due to the down corn on the deal. Some ways to help prevent that is if you have the ability to feed your cows some corn before you take them to stocks, which we know not everybody does. A lot of guys are, I'm done combining and I got the fence up, let's get them to stocks. But if you can feed them, get them up to 4 or 5 pounds of corn a day, that'll help. Their gut will get used to that corn in it, and it will just help them. If that's not a possibility, we can put sodium bicarb out in mineral feeders, or we can mix sodium bicarb in the water. When we do that, we do it at a rate of 2.5 pounds per 100 gallons of water. Along with mineral that we want to use or provide with those cows that are on stocks with down corn, another option that is very useful is also to put out a protein tub that has some urea in it. The reasoning for that is that the urea helps those cows utilize that corn better, and so once they utilize it better, we just don't quite have so many problems. So, there's kind of 3 things with cows down on stocks that we can do. We can try to feed them some corn before they go to stocks, put sodium bicarb either in a mineral feeder or in the water, supply a protein tub with urea to help them utilize it, and then also just make sure that we keep good mineral out there for them during that time.
Back to the tubs Glenn was talking about and the mineral you're talking about, we're running a protein booking program still right now, right?
Correct.
For fall and winter usage?
Yes.
And what's all on that list?
We have our protein tub special goes through the end of November, so through November 30th. And we have our tubs, any of our tubs on it, Purina, ADM, or Hubbard or Crystalix tubs, and MLS tubs are included in that. We have our cubes. So we have any bagged cubes or that you want. We also have our liquids, and then for guys who are still weaning in that, we still have our starter feeds and that on it.
Okay, and you have to get that booked by the end of this month, November, right?
Correct.
And those prices are good till March, or pick up by March?
Yes, you have until March 31st to pick those products up.
Okay. So you talked about guys who are still weaning and backgrounding, or if they're wean calves, or some of them, sell them right away, some of them background. I would just say, Glenn, we have an ability, to make a ration for them cattle or for them calves we're going to background, right? We can, find something that works for us based on your goals, of when you want to background your calves, don't we?
Correct. We have a whole line of products that we can tailor to specific individuals' needs. So every operation's a little different as far as management. They have facilities that they can wean the calves into or background calves into, whether it be a total mixed ration where they have fence line bunks that they can feed into, or if they're hand feeding a grain mix, that's another. A lot of guys have that option. Or if they want a self-fed product that they can just put out in self-feeders, and there's an intake modifier or limiter in that feeder that keeps the cattle from going and overeating on that product, and they have free choice grass bales. So we can tailor it to a lot of different operations, management styles, and feed stuffs that they have out there. Got a whole different line of products that we can come in and suggest and recommend, and we can make up a custom mix for them, like you had kind of mentioned there. We can, out of our feed mills, we can make up a custom mix if they have certain ingredients that they would like to use and utilize.
Yeah, and you can kind of just talk about that with your feed rep. I've done that before myself. Just kind of talk about what forage sources and roughage sources I have at home, and then we can kind of tailor make a feed to our goals. So just that's for information for guys who have weaned cows and are backgrounding their calves, just so we can help you out with those things like that in our feed department. So back to pasturing the stocks a little bit. A lot of times most people, I guess, it seems to be pasture their cattle over the winter on the stalks, and then some, go from pasturing on the stalks to calving. I was just, how we mentioned about the mineral and the tub programs and things like that. Would it be beneficial for guys to pull their cows off of stalks maybe a little bit if, before they're calving, or just make sure they're, still have them tubs and mineral sources out there to keep the body condition on?
So typically, if you've got the forage, I'm a big proponent of let's utilize all your feedstuffs that you have on farm and get the best utilization out of that. So if you have the corn stalks available, we can utilize those with the different supplementations to keep those cows in good condition and prepare them for calving. So typically, we just change the tubs out when we're getting closer to that calving. So we come in with different tubs. Prior to calving, we can come in with an Avela 4 mineral tub. That's a chelated mineral that the cows get that absorption into them a little easier. Get that calf, as that calf is growing rapidly in that cow before she calves, those minerals help that calf in that growth period in that cow to help her prepare that calf. Also different protein tubs. We have high fat tubs that we can put out on the corn stalks that would bring a little more energy in there. If the condition is starting to slip a little bit, we can do that. So there's a number of different options. We can sit down with the producer and walk through essentially, see what best fits him. But there's another option too, other than getting them into a dry lot and preparing them for calving, if they don't have that facility, or if it's just labor intensive, we can make recommendations accordingly.
Okay, very good. For those of us or those who do calve in the fall and they run some pairs on stalks, do they need to be throwing anything else out there? I know we talked about the tubs and mineral sources for like their calves or anything like that to help grow that calf if they're going to choose to put pairs on stalks.
Predominantly, the answer to that be yes, just because we know those fall calving cows through the winter, they don't have the lush grass and the nutrients that the spring cows do. And that, even if they are feeding them with a hay or feeding them silage and that, those calves don't have the option to get to the feed bunks just because the cows are pushing. So we do a lot of times recommend supplemental feeding those calves. And we can do that a number of different ways. We have our creep feed. We can also do a grind and mix with an intake modifier in it so that we control those intakes in the falls so that those calves can go in and they can get supplemental feed anytime that they want.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. Thank you to Linda and Glenn for coming in and talking with us today. If you have any questions about feed or your cattle's needs, you can go to myfarmerscoop.com and click on the feed tab and find a way to get a hold of our feed representatives. Look us up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and give us a like, subscribe, and leave us a comment if you want about what you want to hear from us when on our next podcast. And as always, keep growing.